Cool. Good evening. It's good to have all of you here with us tonight. We're thankful that y'all have joined us for Bible class. A few announcements. First off, Jacob is not here making announcements as usual. That's because he is over in East Tennessee at camp. And so continue to keep him and his crew in your prayers. They will conclude Friday and be headed back this way. And now Brittany and Reese have joined. There's some folks from LPS and others that are at Convention Center in Louisville, Kentucky for the National Beta Convention. So we got several that are there as well. Some prayer requests. Billy Helton is now in room 172 at STRHS Rehab for physical therapy following his hip fracture and hip replacement surgery. He may be up to receiving visitors by the weekend. But be sure to check the visiting hours first. No visitors yet at this point, and may want to wait until we send out word that he's ready for visitors. But we're thankful that he is improving. And Verna Rogers Duncan, the sister of Elizabeth Land, is scheduled to have a kidney removed due to cancer this Friday, June the 23rd at Vanderbilt. And Michael Holman, the son of Joanne Holman and brother of Patsy Lee, had triple heart bypass surgery today at St. Thomas Hospital. The surgery went well. Michael's doing great, so we're thankful for that positive report there. We do extend Christian love and sympathy to the family of David Smith, who recently has been the preacher at the Deerfield Church of Christ. He was the husband of Fana Smith. The visitation will begin for him at 11 a.m., and a memorial service will begin at 1 p.m. this Saturday, June the 24th, at the Clifton Church of Christ in Clifton, Tennessee. Is it Clifton or is it Collinwood? Anybody know? I thought I'd seen Collinwood somewhere. Collinwood Church of Christ, I believe. Some reminders. Don't forget that there is going to be a seniors ministry outing this Saturday, June the 24th. The group will be going to eat at Heine's Barbecue at 3:30 p.m. And after that, meet at the church building for a game night, and there is a sign-up sheet in the foyer for those planning to attend, so please, if you haven't already, get your name on there tonight. This Sunday, June the 25th, will be a fourth Sunday, and we'll have a 1 o'clock song service. We look forward to that. Also this Sunday, June the 25th, the Lions group will be heading down to Florence to go to Songs of Summer once again this week. That will, as always, take place at the UNA Christian Student Center. You'll need to bring money for your supper. Next week, June the 26th, beginning that Monday, will be our Make Me a Servant week. We look forward to that. Lions, you need to be here at 9 o'clock Monday morning. We're going to be doing some work here and other places, and so look forward to that. 9 o'clock next Monday will be the start time. On Tuesday of next week, June the 27th, in conjunction with our Make Me a Servant week, we're going to have a Lambs movie day, and so that all ages will be able to come that day. That will take place in the Lions Den from 10 a.m. and then lambs from 10 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. and lunch will be provided. That is next Tuesday, June the 27th. Keep in mind that class promotion is coming up, but not quite yet. The first Sunday in July and the first Wednesday in July will be the promotion date, so that's July 2nd and 5th. And so you will be going up to, if you're eligible, to the class for the grade you will be in next year. So we look forward to that, and some new people in new classes and things like that. Finally, there is a sign-up sheet also out in the foyer for the Lions and members of the senior ministry who plan to attend the luncheon on Sunday, July the 9th, and we'll be discussing some future joint activities. We're going to be having something that we call Seen in Me, and that is based off of Philippians 4:9. where Paul encourages them to practice the things that you'd heard and seen in him, his example before them, having some opportunities to learn from one another, to spend some time together, get to know one another, and we look forward to that as well. And there will be times where it's more than just Lions and Seniors Ministry. There'll be some in between, and maybe some of those activities for our lambs as well. But we look forward to that, and if you want to stay, that'll be on Sunday, July the 9th after morning worship. That'll be right over here in the fellowship building, but the sign-up sheet is on the foyer, so please get your name on that. That's all the announcements that I have, so I'll now step down here and ask you all to stand up. Y'all ready to march? March. Ready to march? Who's ready to march? Raise your hand if you're ready to march. I'm ready to march. I may never march in the infantry, ride in the cavalry, shoot the artillery. I may never fly o'er the enemy, but I'm in the Lord's army. Yes, sir. I'm in the Lord's army. Yes, sir. I'm in the Lord's army. Yes, sir. I may never march in the infantry, ride in the cavalry, shoot the artillery. I may never fly o'er the enemy, but I'm in the Lord's army. Yes, sir. In the beginning God made the seas, and the forest filled with trees, and the mountains up so high. At the top He placed the sky. His fingerprints are everywhere, just to show how much He cares. In the middle He had some fun. He made a hippo that weighs a ton. Hip, 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 hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. Hip, 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 hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. Time out. I like to make the angry hippo face, right? Have y'all ever seen like a real happy hippo? I've never seen a real happy hippo. Even if they were happy, they still kind of look upset. So that's why we'll see those hippo faces. Where are they? Some hippo faces. Anybody? All right, I see some good ones. All right. Keep those hippo faces out so on the hippopotamus. All right, here we go. In the beginning I made the seas, and the forest filled with trees, and the mountains up so high. At the top He placed the skies, fingerprints are everywhere, just to show how much He cares. In the middle He had some fun. He made a hippo that weighs a ton. Hip, 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 hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. Hip, 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 hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, God made all of us. You see the difference there? You go from upset hippo to hooray, God made us. Y'all think we can go faster one more time? All right. Deep breath. In the beginning I made the seas, and the forest filled with trees, and the mountains up so high. At the top He placed the skies, fingerprints are everywhere, just to show how much He cares. In the middle He has a fine bit over the weather done. Hip, hip, hippopotamus, hip, hip, I made all of us. Hip, hip, hippopotamus, hip, hip, I made all of us. All right. Are we going to roll them? Roll that gospel chariot? Okay, now quickly though, let's see. Raise your hand if you know what the gospel is. If you know what the gospel is, raise your hand. All right. And so now I'm going to pick on Eli. What is the gospel? It's the good news of Jesus Christ. That He came and He lived and He died and He rose again so that we can be with Him for eternity. That's good news. That's the gospel. The gospel is the best thing going. And so when we think about rolling the gospel chariot along, if it's going to move along, it's going to impact people as it goes, right? And so we have brothers and we have sisters that latch on to that gospel, the good news, the saving good news of Jesus Christ. If we really want to roll the gospel chariot, it means we got to do something with the gospel, right? You can't leave it still. It moves like a chariot. We go out and we pick people up. Let's get them rolling. Roll the gospel chariot along, roll the gospel chariot along, roll the gospel chariot along, and we won't tag along behind. If a brother's in the way, we will stop and pick him up. If a brother's in the way, we will stop and pick him up. If a brother's in the way, we will stop and pick him up, and we won't tag along behind. If a sister's in the way, we will stop and pick her up. If a sister's in the way, we will stop and pick her up. If a sister's in the way, we will stop and pick her up, and we won't tag along behind. If the devil's in the way, we will run right over him. If the devil's in the way, we will run right over him. If the devil's in the way, we will run right over him, and we won't tag along behind. Roll the gospel chariot along. Roll the gospel chariot along. Roll the gospel chariot along. And we won't tag along behind. Y'all have a seat real quick. Now, we talked about the gospel. And the gospel is the good news of Jesus Christ. That He came to save us from our sins. And now in that song, and in some other songs we sing, we talk about the devil. And sometimes we'll say he can sit on a tack, and we say these different things. But is the devil somebody that we should ignore or take lightly? Or is he real? Is Satan real? He's real. Is Satan dangerous? He's dangerous. And so do we need to pretend that he's just some character that we can run over in a chariot or sit on a tack all the time? We got to take the devil seriously. But that's what's so great about the gospel. Because what does the gospel do to Satan? It defeats him. And so if we're on the side of Jesus Christ and we obey Him and we do the things that He's asked us to do, we win every time. That doesn't mean that the devil's going to give up. Real quick, if you will recall, there was a time when Jesus was tempted by Satan himself. We'll read about it early in His ministry in the Gospels. And some of the Gospels talk about how when Satan was done with that tempting, he was going to do what? Was he going to give up all of the times that he would even tempt the Son of God, or was he going to come back? He's going to come back. And it says that he was going to do that at a more opportune time. Now, if Satan is willing to go up against the very Son of God, we better know that he's going to come against us too. And we got to be ready. So we got to stay on that gospel chariot, keep living for Jesus Christ, keep sharing Him with others so that we can have a good support system so that when we meet Him, we win. You all are dismissed to your classes.
It's going to be interesting tonight. I got some new trifocals, and I should have used a bigger font on this. Talked to Jacob today and asked him how camp was going, and he just replied, "Wet but fun," and that's all I got out of him. So take that for what that's worth. Still in the book of James, chapter 4. We're looking at verses 13 through 17. If my my voice holds out. I don't know what's going on with it, but James chapter 4, verses 13 through 17, I believe is what I was instructed to cover. So, begin with verse 13. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Well, these verses that we'll be looking at tonight, looking out over the crowd, I think most all of us have been around long enough to understand what we're talking about tonight. Today or tomorrow, we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. And that's so very true. And I happened to look at the date today. It was the 21st of June. And I thought, well, how coincidental is that? June 21st, 1984. I remember my mother got a phone call from my grandmother saying that my granddad had passed away. Of course, mother being mothers, well, what happened or what was wrong? She said, I don't know. Said he just sat up in the middle of the night and lay back down and he was gone. And that was it. And I don't know how I remembered June 21st, but something sparked that date. No PowerPoint, I guess. Jacob said, I've got a PowerPoint you can use. And so I guess he didn't send it. So, but I think the caption he had for James chapter 4 is acknowledging the Lord's involvement in your plan. Both Jesus and James discuss how we should approach the future. Since we don't live outside of time, we view our existence in terms of past, present, and future. We view our existence in the terms of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. One of the keys to living life God's way is to develop the right perspective to the past, the present, and the future. It's been said that a lot of people have been crucifying themselves between two thieves, regrets of yesterday and worries of tomorrow. James and Jesus address what our approach to the future should be. We often make the mistake of viewing the future in the wrong way. Sometimes, and we've all been there, I know, we approach the future with fear. And that's what Jesus essentially addresses in Matthew 6, which we may get to Matthew 6 before tonight's over. There in Matthew 6, he talks about those who approach the future in fear, asking themselves questions like, what are we going to eat? What are we going to drink? What are we going to wear? What's going to happen to us? And we do the same thing today, except the question's a little different. What's going to happen to my kids? Are they going to make good decisions? Are they going to grow up and be faithful to the Lord? What's going to happen to my job? Is my job secure? What's going to happen when I get old? That's a good question. What's going to happen when it comes time for me to die? We often approach the future with fear, thinking that worrying will make everything better. This is probably a real good topic, considering what we've been through in the last 2 to 3 years. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, or seems like the world just stopped there for a while, and we didn't know what we were going to drink there for a while, or what we could drink, or what we're supposed to eat, or what we're supposed to take or not take, or supposed to wear a mask or not wear a mask. There was a lot of unknowing, and a lot of people took it with a lot of fear, and still are. We often approach the future with fear, thinking that worrying will make everything better. I've known a few people in my lifetime that were worry-warts that just worried about everything. And it wasn't just occasionally, it was every day's business, just worry, worry, worry. And I just never did understand that. They were also late for work every day, and I never did understand that either. They didn't worry about the clock. That's one thing they didn't worry about. Is my job secure? A lot of folks in the last 2 to 3 years have had a lot of problems. Is the business even going to be here? Am I going to have a job? And that will put a little fear in you. I came across that once upon a time back in 1998, I believe it was. I got up, drove to Pulaski to go to work, and pulled up in the parking lot and walked in the store, and there's these big orange barrels sitting around the pharmacy with crime tape around it, and I thought, what in the world has happened here? I thought, well, we get broken into again? I mean, I didn't know what was going on. And then Phil came around and said, well, I sold the business. I said, oh, what do I do now, Coach? And of course, I understand where he was coming from. You couldn't tell anybody that you sold the business or let it be known, because if something happened and the deal fell through, then everybody would think you're out of business or take their business elsewhere, so you had to keep. And also, as in the contract, if you did, they would withhold, a few dollars as penalty for letting that out. So, but that was just get up and go to work, expecting to work all day. And I said, well, I guess I'll go home early today. That was fun going home. Shirley called at lunchtime. She was working in Pulaski, and I guess she went to lunch and saw all the commotion. What's going on? I said, well, I don't have a business anymore. I guess I'm going home. Or you want to go to lunch? Or, of course, I'm sure she was thinking, what do we do now, Coach? Because we were adding on a few more square feet to the house, and had one boy in college that didn't know when to quit. And That's a bad plan there. I said, now, as long as you doing good and staying in college and making the grade, and I said, I'll pay for it. Oh, man. I think I heard him the other day say he was at Freed Harbor 16 years. I thought, man, I guess it was worth it. But I had another one coming in right behind him. Had two over there at the same time. That's no wonder I worked 3 jobs. I even asked him one time, I said, well, do you want me to keep working 3 jobs so y'all can, do what you're doing, or y'all want to go to work? Talking to the kids. Oh, you can just keep on working. I said, well, thank you. Then I got a text from Seth, it was probably a year or so ago, maybe a little longer than that. Evie's 5 now, and I guess she's about 2 years old, and they were looking for some babysitting in Franklin, and that's quite expensive around there. And he texted me one day, he said, now I know why you work 3 jobs. And I said, yeah, times changed. Time passes and things change. Another mistake that we make is we approach the future with pride. James talks about this and in these verses that we're looking at tonight, 13 through 17. Told you I couldn't see. But as we look to Matthew 6:30, he says, but if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith? He redirects them to trust in God, and he redirects them from thoughts of the future to thoughts of today. He says, therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. So take care of the issues of today and trust God today, rather than worrying about the future. Trust God through that also. James' solution is essentially the same as Jesus' solution. Both of them are saying, trust in God, don't trust in the future. When you depend on the future, you fear the future. When you have a prideful approach to the future, you're basically using the future as your God. It controls you. It becomes your Lord and Master rather than trusting in the Lord. James goes so far as to give us some reasons why we should do this. 4 reasons why we need to trust in God and why it is futile for us to place our trust in the future. James 4:13. James talks about those who have plans for the future. So how would you respond to this statement that we just read in 13? Today or tomorrow we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Wished it was that easy. I'm sure all of us that have been in business or just talking to people in general, We've heard people say, well, I'm going out of town. I'll be back as soon as I make this deal or sell this or that and make my money. I'll be back. Don't know when, but I'll be back. And what do we usually say to those folks when they say that? Well, usually it's something like, well, have a good trip. Hope everything works out all right. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. We all make statements like that. May not be to that extent, but somebody may ask you, what are you going to do for Thanksgiving this year? And everybody usually knows where they're going, what they're going to do, what they're going to eat. We'd always have to decide if we was going to have the turkey bowl or not. After we ate lunch, we get out there and play football, those that could. Then it got, nobody could anymore, so we just watched football. Had too many injuries at the turkey bowl for no longer than it lasted. My sisters didn't play fair. James 4:14. Yet you do not know what will happen tomorrow. And that's for sure. Get all stressed out about what's going to happen tomorrow. And tomorrow never gets here, it turns into today. I can remember when I graduated from college and a couple of weeks in between graduation and went and took the state boards, and you know, all the people's already taken it. They tell you how bad it is and try to make you feel bad, tell you need to study. And I'm thinking, well, I've been studying for 5 years. What do I need to study for 2 more weeks? But they even had these little books you could buy, you know, prep books to get you ready for the test. And so 3 or 4 of us got together one afternoon. We were going to study. And after about 10 minutes, we decided it was useless to be trying to do that, so we lined all the books up on the guardrail on the outside of the apartment there and just kicked them off into the courtyard and went back in and probably watching football again or listening to Leonard Skinner or somebody. And I wasted money on that book. I didn't. Well, I got to kick it. That was about all the good it's going to do me. So then we made another great decision. Well, since we're not going to study for this, we're going to, 3 of us are going to buy motorcycles and ride to California day after we took the state boards, didn't know, back then you didn't have all this technology to find out real quick if you passed the test or not. You had to wait till they were graded, and they sent you a letter in the mail. So we took the boards, and next day got on the motorcycles, and we headed out to California. And our plan was, if we passed the state board, we were going to ride across the Golden Gate. If we didn't, we was going to ride off of it. And so luckily, all of us got to ride across it. I thought I was going to have to push mine across. I blew mine up coming out of Phoenix, and that was another story. Them old Harleys used to burn a lot of oil. I've got a picture of mine with 5 quarts of oil taped on my duffel bag on the back of the bike. Every time I get gas, I'd have to put a quart of oil in it. And I stopped at one place, and this big old biker dude, he said, "Boy, they changed the ring set up in that bike, and you've only had it, 3 or 4 months." Said you never had got it hot enough to seat the rings. And so I cranked it up when we were leaving Phoenix, and I must have cranked it too far, because I heard a click, click, and a boom, and black smoke rolled out of it, and there I was on the side of the road. But luckily, these 2 boys from Texas hauling lard in an 18-wheeler stopped and picked me up and took me to L.A., dumped me off at a dealership 2 o'clock in the morning in L.A. by myself. And I was trying to think, how am I going to get home? And I wonder what I can get for this broke down Harley, and I'm going to buy a plane ticket, and I'm going back to Tennessee. And I got separated from the other guys because I was riding in an 18-wheeler, and they were on their bikes, and stopped at a truck stop. And these old boys, I think they were supposedly had stopped to work on some paperwork. And anyway, we got separated. And I had 4 cell phones and all that good stuff, so didn't know how we was going to get in touch with each other, which we never did. Well, yeah, we did. They found me about 6 o'clock the next morning. They just rode around in L.A. to hit Harley dealerships till they found me, and I sure was glad of that. So still didn't know how I was going to get home, but since I had so much money in my pocket, I think I had $20 to get me all the way back to Tennessee. My daddy wouldn't let me borrow his credit card. I didn't understand that either. Of course, I understood the day I got married, he was getting ready to leave the church, and he came up, slapped me on the back, and handed me a check. So I looked at it, it was a check for $500. He slapped me on the back and said, "Well, you're on your own now, big boy." I thought, oh no. And he was right. So the day doesn't always end up like you think it's going to. And sometimes today doesn't end up as bad as you think it's going to. But we should have a submissive spirit to accompany all the plans we make, because the future is not as controllable as we think. James 4, verse 16. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. I guess I missed verse 15. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. I'm sure all of us that have grown up in the pews remember used to hear it a lot more than you do now. I guess it depends on where you are, is Lord willing. Seems like that was something you heard every Sunday in church, the Lord willing. We were talking about when service is going to be. It was such and such time, the Lord willing, if the Lord wills. And usually if somebody asks you about your plans, you'd say, well, we're going to do this, Lord willing. And maybe we need to say more of that. Because it's by the Lord's will that we do anything. It's even our own breath. Have you ever tried to make yourself breathe in rhythm? I get messed up when I go to the doctor, which not often, but let's say, take a deep breath and hold it and do that, and I don't know how long I'm supposed to hold it or how deep the breath's supposed to be, but you can sleep all night and never consciously think about breathing. And the future is not as certain as you think. It's not as distant as you think, and it's not as controllable as you think. 1 John 2:16 talks about the pride of life, the boasting about what one does and what one has. It's boasting about what you have, and it's boasting about what you think you're going to do. But as I said, the future is not as certain as you think, and it's not as distant as you think. It's not as controllable as you think. So James 4:17. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. So if we know we have something we need to do or could do or help somebody to do whatever, we should help them now and not say, well, we'll do that tomorrow, or and do what we need to do now. If we're going to be generous now, then we know we'll be generous later. And don't excuse your lack of generosity and benevolence now with the thought that you will do those things later. We can't seize opportunities in the future. We can only seize present opportunities. James is saying you need to seize the opportunities now. You need to do good now. If you don't, then you sin. The future is not trustworthy, but if you trust in God, that's liberating. Your future may not be certain, but God is certain. Your life may not last very long, but an eternity with God will last forever. You can't control the future, but you can trust the person who does control the future. With that trust in God, a sense of urgency will manifest itself to do good for other people and to be about God's business and to seize the opportunities that we have today. Another way to look at that is this means we need to do right today because we do not know that we will have the opportunity to do right tomorrow. We must live righteously before God today because we do not know that we will have tomorrow to do so. We need to live rightly with our spouses, children, families, and friends because we do not have tomorrow guaranteed. We cannot and will not say in our hearts that we will do better tomorrow. We need to do better today. You may not be here tomorrow. Other people may not be here tomorrow. Life may not be what we think tomorrow will be. Live right today. We must live with the reference to the will of God always. I guess the big question most people are asking today is, when are things going to return to normal? If that's even, anybody even knows what normal is. And how far back to normal do you want to go? Do we really want to go back to a normal where we took life for granted, make plans arrogantly, and assume upon the blessings of God? Do we really want the world to return to a time when it ignored God, hated God, rejected God, and showed disdain for God? Do we want to go back to a time where we assumed that we would always have good health and that nothing could hurt us because we have medical technology? Do we want to go back to a time where we thought our prosperity and wealth would never end because we live in the United States of America? Do we really want to pray for going back to that kind of arrogant living? So maybe God does not want us to go back to the way things were. Maybe we should do the right things today and not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. we need to realize in our hearts that life is about the will of God, not about our will or our plans or what we think we can control. So hopefully we will be thankful for each day that we receive, because I know that it is only God's will that I make money, have rest, take vacations, enjoy family, buy food, and everything else I'm able to do. We will experience a greater amount of thankful living today when we see that it is all because of God's will. And when we come to that realization that it's God's will that we're here, that we're breathing, that we're even able to do anything, it's all God's will. And we need to understand that and not take that for granted. Sorry for all the rambling, but it's hot up here. Had the first bell, didn't we? I guess you call that a bell. I'm not used to that. First time I heard it, I thought somebody's phone was going off. But let us pray as we end. Our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this day and the blessings thereof. We're thankful that we do live in this great country, that we do have opportunity to live and work and provide, that we can even meet together to discuss thy word. And it's by your will that we are even here. We're thankful for your Son, Jesus. And in his name we pray. Amen.